The conference room felt like ice. My hands were shaking under the table as I watched Vanessa hook up her laptop to the projector. The screen lit up and I saw my slides, my charts, my entire presentation about the marketing campaign I'd spent 3 months building from scratch. But something was wrong. My name wasn't anywhere on the title slide, just hers, Vanessa Clark, Senior Marketing Strategist. She clicked to the next slide, and my stomach dropped. She was presenting my work like she'd created every single word. When she said, "I developed this strategy based on consumer behavior analysis," I almost stood up. Those were my exact words from the draft I'd sent her last week. Everyone around the table nodded, impressed. My boss leaned forward, smiling, and Vanessa kept talking, confident and smooth, like she'd earned every second of their attention. I sat frozen, drowning in disbelief. The applause started before I could process what had happened. People stood up to shake Vanessa's hand. My boss clapped her on the shoulder and said, "Exceptional work, this is exactly what we need." She smiled wide, soaking it all in. I tried to catch her eye, but she looked everywhere except at me. That's when I knew. This wasn't some misunderstanding or technical error. She had deliberately removed my name. She had stolen my work and presented it as her own in front of the entire leadership team. My chest felt tight. I forced myself to smile when people walked past me, but inside I was screaming. Vanessa finally glanced my way for half a second, and I saw it. Guilt quickly hidden behind that bright, fake grin. She knew exactly what she'd done. My name is Megan Walsh, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a marketing coordinator at Creston Media Group, a company I joined 5 years ago right out of college. I've always believed in hard work and loyalty. I thought if you did good work and treated people right, success would follow. The woman who just destroyed that belief was Vanessa Clark. We'd been best friends for 8 years, ever since we met at a networking event when we were both starting out. We clicked immediately. Same sense of humor, same dreams, same struggles. We built our careers side by side, or at least I thought we did. Turns out I was just building hers. Vanessa and I were inseparable. We had lunch together every single day. We carpooled to work. We texted constantly, sharing everything from work stress to relationship problems. When my mum got diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, Vanessa showed up at the hospital with coffee and stayed with me for hours. When she got behind on rent last year, I lent her $1,500 without hesitation. She paid me back in installments, always grateful, always saying I was the best friend she'd ever had. Everyone at work knew us as a team, the dynamic duo. I genuinely thought we'd rise through the company together, celebrating each other's wins. I never imagined she'd be the one to push me down. Looking back, the signs were there. About 6 months ago, Vanessa started asking me for help more often. At first, it seemed normal. "Can you look over this email? You're so much better with words." Or, "I'm struggling with this presentation. Can you help me organize the ideas?" I was happy to help, that's what friends do. But then her requests got bigger. Full drafts, strategy outlines, research summaries. She'd send me rough ideas and I'd turn them into polished work. She always thanked me and said she couldn't do it without me. I felt useful, needed. I didn't realize I was handing her the tools to erase me. Slowly, my voice started disappearing from meetings while hers got louder. She began speaking with more confidence, using phrases I'd written, presenting concepts I'd developed. And I smiled, proud of her growth. 3 weeks before the presentation, I overheard my manager talking to someone in the hallway. I was grabbing coffee from the break room when I heard him say, "She's really stepping up. Natural leadership qualities." My heart lifted. I'd been working harder than ever, taking on extra projects, staying late. I thought he was talking about me. Then he said her name. Vanessa. I froze, cup halfway to my lips. He continued, "I'm thinking about recommending her for the senior strategist position." My chest tightened. That was the promotion I'd been working toward for 2 years, the one my manager had hinted I was in line for. I walked back to my desk feeling dizzy, trying to convince myself I'd misheard. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. After the presentation, I waited until everyone left the conference room. Vanessa was packing up her laptop, still glowing from all the praise. I walked up to her, my voice shaking despite my attempt to stay calm. Why wasn't my name on any of those slides? She looked up, surprised. Then her expression softened into something that looked like concern. Oh, Megan, I thought you knew. I figured you wouldn't want the pressure of presenting to the executives. You've been so stressed lately with your mom and everything. My mouth fell open. She was twisting my personal struggles into an excuse for cutting me out. I helped you build that entire campaign, I said. She touched my arm gently. And I'm so grateful. You're an amazing support. Support, not partner, not collaborator. Support, that word felt like a slap. 2 days later, I was called into HR. My manager and the director of marketing were there, along with the HR rep. They told me Vanessa had been officially promoted to senior marketing strategist. They thanked me for my contributions to the team and said they hoped I'd continue supporting the department's initiatives. I sat there, numb, as they outlined her new responsibilities that included leading projects I'd conceptualized. When they asked if I had any questions, I shook my head. What could I say? That my best friend had stolen my work? That I'd been erased from my own success? They'd already made their decision. As I left the office, I realized the truth. She hadn't just stolen my work. She'd stolen my future at this company. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I could barely drag myself out of bed in the morning. At work, I felt invisible. Vanessa was busy with meetings and strategy sessions, playing the role of rising star. She'd wave at me in the hallway, casual and friendly like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I started doubting myself. Maybe I wasn't as good as I thought. Maybe I really was just support staff. My bills started piling up because I'd been counting on that promotion and the raise that came with it. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake replaying every conversation, every shared secret, every moment I'd trusted her. I felt stupid and small and completely replaceable. But slowly, underneath all that hurt, something else started growing, something cold and focused. Anger. I stopped talking about what happened. I didn't complain to co-workers or confront Vanessa again. Instead, I became completely silent and observant. I started paying attention to everything she did. I saved every email we'd ever exchanged. I went through my files and created a folder with dated versions of every document, every strategy brief, every presentation draft I'd created. I noted timestamps, tracked timelines, highlighted contradictions in the stories she told. Vanessa thought I'd given up. She thought I was broken and defeated. She had no idea I was building a case. I wasn't planning some dramatic confrontation. I was simply collecting the truth and waiting for the right moment. Patience became my weapon. Power changed Vanessa quickly. Within a month of her promotion, I started seeing cracks in the perfect image she'd created. She interrupted people in meetings, talking over junior staff like their ideas didn't matter. She missed deadlines she'd confidently promised to meet. When projects succeeded, she made sure everyone knew she led them. When things went wrong, she was suddenly unavailable, letting other people take the blame. I watched her closely, taking mental notes. Other people started noticing too. I'd hear whispers in the break room. She's not as sharp as we thought. Did you see how she fumbled that client question? I never joined these conversations. I just listened and stayed quiet. I knew the truth would surface eventually. It always does. The moment came during a video call with our biggest client. The CEO asked a technical question about audience segmentation, something I'd explained to Vanessa at least a dozen times when we worked together. Everyone on the call turned their cameras toward her, waiting. She froze. Her confident smile flickered. She stammered something vague about drilling down into the demographics without actually answering the question. The silence stretched. Finally, the client said, "Maybe someone else can address this." My manager jumped in and saved the meeting, but the damage was done. After the call, I saw people exchanging glances. Doubt had entered the room. Vanessa laughed it off, blamed a bad connection, but everyone had seen her panic. The illusion was starting to crack. While Vanessa was busy maintaining her image, I was rebuilding myself. I enrolled in an advanced digital marketing certification program that met online 3 nights a week. Nobody at work knew about it. I studied consumer psychology, data analytics, and strategic planning, skills Vanessa had never bothered to develop because she'd always had me to do that work. Every night after coming home exhausted, I'd sit at my laptop and absorb new information. I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as someone preparing for something bigger. Each completed module felt like adding another brick to a new foundation. I was building a version of myself that didn't need anyone's validation or approval, just competence and quiet confidence. 4 months after Vanessa's promotion, the company announced a comprehensive performance review across all departments. Leadership wanted to assess project outcomes, validate strategies, and ensure accountability. They'd bring in an external consulting team to audit major campaigns from the past year. The announcement came during a Monday morning all-hands meeting. I felt calm. Vanessa's face went pale. Audits are different from presentations. You can't smile your way through them. You can't charm consultants who are trained to dig into documentation and verify claims. Facts matter. Timelines matter. Proof matters. And I had all of it. I didn't say anything to Vanessa, didn't even look her way, but I knew her mind was racing, trying to figure out how to explain work she didn't actually do. When the audit team requested documentation for the major campaigns, I was ready. Vanessa submitted polished presentations and confidence summaries. I submitted something different. Facts. I provided emails showing my original concepts, file versions with metadata proving I'd created the initial drafts, meeting notes where I'd outlined strategies that later appeared in her presentations. I didn't add commentary or accusations. I didn't need to. The timeline spoke for itself. Every document was dated and time-stamped. Every email had a sender and recipient. The truth was laid out like pieces of a puzzle, and anyone looking at it could see the complete picture. I handed everything over to the audit team and went back to work like it was just another Tuesday. The energy around Vanessa started shifting. People who used to seek her advice suddenly seemed less impressed. In meetings, her opinions were questioned more often. I noticed her voice getting louder, like she was trying to force people to listen through sheer volume. She started over-explaining simple concepts, compensating for the confidence that was quietly draining away. Junior staff members who used to admire her began rolling their eyes when she spoke. The shift was subtle but undeniable. Authority that isn't built on real competence can't survive scrutiny. Respect that's based on stolen work evaporates the moment people realize the truth. I watched it happen in real time, and I didn't feel happy or victorious. I just felt vindicated. 2 weeks into the audit, I received an unexpected calendar invitation. A meeting with the audit team, my manager, and the director of marketing. No explanation. Just a time and a virtual meeting room. My heart started pounding when I logged in and saw Vanessa was there too, looking nervous. The lead auditor, a woman named Catherine with sharp eyes and no-nonsense energy, started asking questions. She directed most of them at me. Can you walk us through your involvement in the Q2 consumer campaign? My voice was steady as I explained my process: research, strategy development, execution planning. Vanessa sat silent, her jaw tight. Catherine asked follow-up questions I answered easily because I'd actually done the work. For the first time in months, I felt powerful. Then Catherine dropped the bomb. We've noticed something interesting in the documentation, she said, pulling up a screen. Megan's name appears on all the original drafts and strategy outlines from January through March, but the final presentations credit Vanessa exclusively. She paused, letting that sink in. Can someone explain this discrepancy? The silence was deafening. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it. My manager shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice tight. Megan helped with the initial research, but I developed the final strategy. Catherine tilted her head. The timestamp suggests the final strategy is nearly identical to Megan's initial drafts, just reformatted. Vanessa's face flushed red. Her story was falling apart in real time, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Vanessa tried to recover. She talked faster, explaining how she'd refined my ideas and elevated the approach. But the more she spoke, the worse it got. She contradicted herself, claiming she'd led brainstorming sessions that never happened, referencing meetings that weren't on any calendar. Catherine took notes silently. My manager looked like he wanted to disappear. The confidence that had once made Vanessa shine now made her look desperate and dishonest. She was drowning, and every word she spoke pulled her deeper under. I sat completely still, barely breathing. I didn't need to say anything. The truth was speaking louder than any accusation I could have made. Karma didn't need my help. It was handling everything just fine on its own. 3 days after that meeting, Vanessa was removed from her position. Not reassigned to another role, not given a warning, removed, effective immediately. The official reason was performance inconsistencies and documentation concerns, but everyone knew what it really meant. She'd been caught. HR called me in separately and told me they were restructuring the team. They apologized, carefully, formally, using the kind of language lawyers approve, for any oversights in the recognition process. They didn't explicitly say they knew she'd stolen my work, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. I accepted their apology with a polite nod. Vanessa's face when she heard the news would stay with me forever. All colour drained from it, leaving her looking small and lost. Vanessa cleared out her desk on a Friday afternoon. I happened to be walking past when I saw her packing her things into a cardboard box. Our eyes met for a second. I waited for something. An apology, an explanation, maybe even anger, but she just looked away and kept packing. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. 8 years of friendship ended in silence. I felt a strange emptiness watching her leave. Not sadness exactly, but the weight of something that had mattered once and didn't anymore. She walked out carrying that box, and I never saw her again. No goodbye, no closure, just the quiet end of something that had been poisoned long before it finally died. A week later, leadership called me into a different kind of meeting. This time, the CEO was there. They apologized more directly, acknowledging that my contributions had been inadequately recognized. Then they made me an offer. A new position. Senior marketing strategist, reporting directly to the director. Better pay. 30% more than I'd been making. Real authority over campaigns and team members. They asked if I was interested. I didn't smile or gush or thank them profusely. I just said, yes, I accept. They seemed slightly surprised by my calm response, but I'd learned something important over the past months. My worth wasn't dependent on their recognition. I was accepting the role because I'd earned it, not because they'd finally noticed. The power dynamic had shifted, and I was never going back to being small. 1 month into my new role, something unexpected happened. A recruiter from a major advertising firm reached out via LinkedIn. They'd heard about how I'd handled the audit situation, how I'd stayed professional, presented clear documentation, and let the truth speak for itself. Integrity, they said, was rare in the industry. They wanted to talk about opportunities. I took the call out of curiosity and ended up having 3 more conversations with their leadership team. They offered me a position as marketing director with equity and a benefits package that made my current salary look small. I'd gone from being erased to being recruited in less than 6 months. I accepted the offer, not out of spite or revenge, but because it was genuinely the better opportunity. Sometimes winning means knowing when to walk away. My last day at Creston Media Group was bittersweet. I'd spent 5 years there, learned so much, and grown from an uncertain graduate into someone who knew her value. I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to the few people I'd genuinely connected with, and walked out the front doors for the last time. Starting at the new company felt like stepping into sunlight after months in shadow. My new team respected my ideas from day one. My boss trusted me to lead without micromanaging. I had resources and authority and space to actually create. I caught my reflection in the glass wall of my new office one morning and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because I carried myself differently. Calm, grounded, free. The person I'd been before Vanessa's betrayal felt like a stranger, too trusting, too naive, too willing to shrink. I'd never be that person again. Looking back now, I understand what happened. Vanessa stole my work, my recognition, and temporarily my confidence. But she couldn't steal who I actually was. She couldn't take my skills, my integrity, or my ability to rebuild. In trying to erase me, she accidentally revealed her own emptiness. People who rise by taking credit for others' work eventually run out of people to exploit. Their foundation crumbles because it was never real to begin with. Meanwhile, I kept my character intact. I stayed quiet when I could have screamed. I built evidence when I could have sought revenge. I let the truth work on my behalf instead of fighting battles that would have diminished me. And in the end, that's what survived. Not her false confidence, my real strength. So here's what I learned. Know your worth, even when others don't see it. Stay quiet and strategic when chaos tempts you to react. Document everything, and trust that arrogance always eventually collects its own debt. You don't have to destroy people who wronged you. Just step back and let their lies catch up to them. Then move forward into something better, because karma doesn't miss. It just takes its time.